Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. Glad you could be with us. I'm Doug Binette, Acting Director of the New York Tech Alliance and your host for tonight's meetup. We have two amazing companies that are going to demo with us tonight. But before we begin, I'd like to share a few items regarding the evening's event and the New York Tech Alliance itself. For anyone joining us for the first time, the New York Tech Alliance is a nonprofit serving over 60,000 members in the New York tech community. At the core of our mission, we drive access, equity, and inclusion to make the New York tech ecosystem the most diverse and dynamic in the world. To learn more about us and how to engage, visit our website at nitech.org. Please know that we record our events to share the experience with those unable to attend. Recordings are posted on NYTA's YouTube channel. You can view this and past recordings at youtube.com/New York Tech Alliance. The event tonight is all about tech. So each demo focuses on the tech developed to address market opportunities. So we ask you to refrain from questions about business or revenue models. Those conversations can be had during the networking portion or outside of the event itself. And a big thanks to our sponsors who help make this event possible. Each has a presence on our website. You can learn more about them and how they support our community by going to nitech.org/sponsors. Our upcoming events, we have our next Founder Spotlight, which will be the week of July 25. Right now, we're still confirming details around date and time and company. So stay tuned. We'll make those announcements through our social channels, our newsletter, and website itself. We're going to take a break in August, hopefully have a little beach time or whatever time just to take a breath and a break. And then we'll resume in September when we'll have our next meetup, September 12th. And right now we're working on having our first in-person meetup since COVID hit all of us back in early 2020. So we're working on a venue and all the production that it takes to do this in person. Here too, we'll update you guys on our socials, newsletter, and website. So stay tuned for that. And you can always learn more about the events by visiting nitech.org/our_events. And lastly, we love and welcome support to help us produce and deliver our programming. 3 ways you can help include add a donation when you RSVP to one of our events, become an individual supporting or corporate member of New York Tech Alliance, or simply make a small donation. You can do that by going to nitech.org/support_NYTA. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike Wang, CTO of Mesh, as our first presenter this evening. And I'm going to bring Mike on stage. There he is. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Glad you could be with us. And it's so great to have you guys back to do another great demo. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Really great to be here. Hey, everyone. My name's Mike. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Mesh. Just go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And just to give you Mesh in a nutshell, Mesh is a B2B SaaS tool that lets you create step-by-step guides with video overlaid directly on your product or website. It makes customers feel like they're being guided one-on-one on Zoom at the right time and place, resulting in better conversion and retention. And by the way, if you have any questions during the presentation, I believe we'll have a Q&A right afterwards. But my co-founder Vivek is in the chat, so if you have any burning questions, feel free to shoot a message there, and I'm sure he'll be able to help you answer that. Okay, so to sort of illustrate the problem that we're solving with Mesh and why it's so painful for both users and businesses today, I want to use a little analogy. So imagine that you are you've just booked your dream vacation to Hawaii, and you're going to be visiting the beautiful Waikoloa Resort shown here, and you only have 3 days there, so you really want to make the most of your time. But once you start getting into it, this is what you have to work with. So you've got, booklets, maps, signs, maybe a welcome email, and that's a lot to go off of. You can certainly, figure out how to have a great time with all of these resources at your fingertips. But I mean, come on, that sounds like a lot of work. And you paid good money for this trip, and you're really just trying to relax. But now you have to spend hours planning and just trying to figure out how to navigate this whole resort. That's not cool. So what do the best resorts do about this? The best resorts have someone to help you. Right when you arrive, they greet you, and they're there to help you throughout your entire stay. So what this does is many different things. One is it puts a face to the business, humanizes it, and makes it a lot more engaging for you. They can give you personalized recommendations based on the type of guest you are. And they can even give you extra context and tips that you wouldn't really have been able to get anywhere else, like where the best sunset view is on the island. They can even upsell you. So if they know that a certain travel package would be really valuable for you, you'd really enjoy, they can recommend that. And so it's a win-win for both you and the business. And then they can offer to help you anytime. So that's like a much better experience. But there is still one glaring problem with this solution. And, the more they try to scale up and support more customers, the more bodies they're going to have to throw at that in order to support their hopefully growing customer base. And people tend to be expensive. If you hire an army of people to have face-to-face interactions, that's a great way to burn through a lot of money. So that kind of summarizes the problem. How do we bring this back into the world of software? Well, if you've ever run or worked for a subscription software company, you've probably become intimately familiar with this problem. 68.5% of customer churn is actually due to poor relationship building, onboarding, customer service, and overselling. So, customers churning because they have misconfigured your product or haven't set it up to take advantage of the features that would really be valuable for them, or maybe even they don't know that those features exist. And on top of that, customers constantly asking to just jump on a Zoom call because they just want you to show them how to do something. And so that ends up sucking up the team's time with really repetitive requests. So in the US, this type of avoidable churn costs businesses $136 billion a year. And by the way, that is all despite these businesses having loads of documentation, trying to make their products really intuitive, running webinars, having great email campaigns with beautiful feature announcements. So that's exactly why we built Mesh, to tackle this problem. And now I'll give you a demo of what it actually looks like. So what I just did here is I clicked a Mesh link. What I put together here is a simple example of an onboarding mesh. So I'm using Mixpanel as an example. For those of you who don't know, Mixpanel is a product that lets you view and visualize product analytics. So not affiliated with us. So I'm kind of moonlighting here as an onboarding person for Mixpanel. And what you're seeing here is a mesh overlaid on the Mixpanel dashboard. So this is kind of the situation where Mixpanel is like a mesh customer. They've used our product in their dashboard to help onboard users. Fingers crossed that actually happens one day. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this short onboarding so you can see what it's like to experience a mesh from the user side. Hi there, welcome to Mixpanel. My name's Mike with the product team, and I see it's your first time here, so I wanted to give you a quick tour of the basics, then show you how to create your first project. The first thing to know about is the report section on the top left here. It's where you'll find the real power of Mixpanel. If you go ahead and click that, you'll see the 4 types of reports that are available. For example, an Insights report tells you how many users took a certain action over time. Click the Next button down here to continue. Let's create your first project together now. So go ahead and click the top right here to see your project list. Click the Create Project button. A modal will pop up, so just give it a name, hit Create, and you're off to the races. I'm going to create this project now, and as you can see, what happened is that by following this guide, Mixpanel was actually able to push me to the action that they want me to take as the very first thing that I do, because they know that I'll probably need to create a project in order to start getting value out of Mixpanel. Oh, let me just name that something else. Okay. All right, so now that you've created your first project, the first thing we're going to do is connect a data source. This is the most important step because once you have data flowing into Mixpanel, you're going to really see all the amazing things you can do. So click the settings on the top right here, and then below that, click project settings. All right, so now just scroll down and grab the project token in API secret. Then you can click next step here to be taken directly to our segment data connector guide, or click the link above. So with this last step, one capability that you have with meshes is actually to push users to a different location when they hit the next button. So in this case, what's happening is I'm being taken to this segment integration guide. So that can be an external resource, or if you wanted to just sort of automatically move them through the guide. So that's my quick little example on onboarding. One other thing I wanted to show you about sort of the in-product use cases is you can actually set up rules. So a mesh appears when the user takes a certain action or lands on a certain page. And so this is powerful because sometimes what happens is that users will be dropped into this dashboard. They won't have any idea what to do. And they need some guidance the first time they encounter a feature. So what we're going to see here is I'm going to click this to create an Insights report. And I guess I'm still in creation mode. So I'll just try that again. So I click this to create an Insights report. And because it's my first time encountering this feature as a user, this little guide pops up for me. Looks like it's your first time creating an Insights report here, so I just wanted to quickly show you how to create a simple one. So the first thing you'll want to do is to add a metric. So on the left, click Add a Metric there. You'll see the ability to add an event, so click that. And then you can pick any metric that you're looking to track, such as accounts created. Once you've done that, just go ahead and hit Next Step, and I'll tell you how to navigate the chart. All right, so there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to show you the most important parts to pay attention to. You can change the time span of the chart you're looking at by changing the date here. You can also compare the chart to a previous time period, such as year over year or month over month. And then finally, you can change the type of chart right here on the left. So if you wanted it to be a bar chart instead of a line chart, you could do that there. Cool. So that's just an example of a mesh sort of popping up based on rules to show the user how to do something. And now that we've seen sort of what a mesh is like from the user perspective, I just wanted to show what it's like to actually create a mesh. If you've ever used any of these sort of in-product workflow builders, they can get pretty complex, which is why we built it in a way that's like supposed to be really intuitive, no code required. You can basically do it in a few minutes with no engineering effort or assistance needed. So what I did that kind of fast, but what I did is we have a Chrome extension. So I open that up, and then in the Chrome extension, you can hit the plus button here to start creating a mesh on any page. So I'm creating a mesh now for this Mixpanel page. And you can see that the mesh creator toolbar got overlaid on Mixpanel. So I'll do that again. Again, Mixpanel, not related to our product. Mesh is the toolbar that's now being overlaid on Mixpanel. So what you're seeing on the right here is basically a preview of what the user is going to see. So in the creation process, we wanted to make it as close to what the viewer will see as possible, so you know exactly how you're designing this. What I'm going to create right now, just really quick, is how to turn on dark mode in Mixpanel. Just as a quick example. So now I'm going to hit record, and this is going to start recording me, and I can start dropping those magenta beacons that you saw earlier. Hey everyone, I'm going to show you how to turn on dark mode in Mixpanel. So first you want to click the settings icon on the top right here. And then once you've done that, you can see the dark mode control and go ahead and toggle that and you'll turn on dark mode. Stop the recording. And that's it. That recording is done with the beacons timed and everything. And I'll play back a preview of that so you can see what the user is going to see in just a second. If I turn on dark mode, I can also take a screenshot of anything on the page. Here, I'll just sort of take a screenshot of what dark mode looks like. That'll get added to the card. I can add multiple screenshots if I like as well. And so let me just do preview really quick so you can all see what I just created in about a minute. So this is what the user is going to see now when they open up this guide. Hey everyone, I'm going to show you how to turn on dark mode in Mixpanel. So first you want to click the settings icon on the top right here. And then once you've done that, you can see the dark mode control and go ahead and toggle that and you'll turn on dark mode. Cool. So that's basically the mesh creation in a nutshell. A couple small features here to also mention. You can switch the mesh side if you think it's going to cover something for the user. You can also see all of the beacons that you dropped and edit them as well. And then you can set the page URL that you want to push the user to on a step. So what I did there is I created the second step by hitting the next button. And then now if I open up this URL editor, I can set this to any page I like. For example, set it to the pricing page. So now this second step is going to push the user to the pricing page, and we can test that. If I navigate back, it's going to take me back to the dashboard. If I navigate forward, it's going to take me to the pricing page. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is show you what happens when you hit finish and review, which is going to take you to the mesh dashboard, and I'll walk you through what we've got going on there. So the finish and review page, the finish and review button brought me to the mesh editor. This lets me see all the steps of the mesh that I just created. Everything is fully editable here, so I can change the text, I can re-record the video, I can even reorder the steps. And from this screen, I can also share the mesh in a few different ways. So if I hit share link, this is going to generate a permalink for the mesh. I can include this in emails, I can send it over chat, I can embed it on my website. And so whenever somebody clicks this link, it's going to bring them to that Mixpanel page that I overlaid the mesh on with the mesh overlaid on top of it. I can also copy an email embed, which is going to be HTML code for you to put in an email. So that will have the thumbnail of the mesh to look a little bit nicer. I can also send the mesh by adding emails here, or I can type in names and groups that I've created within the mesh dashboard, which I'll show you in a second. Or I can hit preview here and it'll take me to this mesh exactly as a user would see it. So if I hit back here, now we're in the mesh dashboard. So we've got the mesh library here. These are all the meshes that I've created on my account. These two down here are the ones that we just saw earlier. Few things I can do here. So I can view who actually viewed the mesh and how many steps they completed. So these are sort of a quick view on metrics. and I can see the individual users there as well. I can duplicate a mesh. So this is really useful for a use case that I'll show you in a second, but for sales, if you wanted to overlay yourself on a website, you probably also want to personalize your sales pitch a little bit. So what you could do is create one mesh with, say, 5 steps, and then you could duplicate that mesh and then just edit the first step to include the name of the person that you're sending it to, or the segment of the user that you're sending it to. So as an example, I could duplicate this mesh here. That pops up at the top. I could now go into this copy and maybe just edit the title to include a name or something like that. I can also change the thumbnail on the mesh if I, don't like my my face on every single mesh like this. So over here, you can also see meshes that you've sent and received. And as I mentioned earlier, you can create groups. So if you have, a group of users that you frequently interact with, like customers, if you're like a customer success manager, maybe you have a book of customers that you frequently send in-product messaging to. So you could create a group of those users and then just send a mesh to that entire group. So that covers the mesh dashboard. And then the last thing I wanted to show you all is an example of a sales mesh. So this is a way that you can actually embed mesh in your emails. So this is an example of a cold outreach email that Ron, our CEO, put together as an example. So he embedded the mesh link in this email. And if I find that interesting, I'll go ahead and click it, and I'll let him do a quick pitch on Mesh for you all.
Hi, New York Tech Alliance. I'm Ron Fisher, the CEO and co-founder of Mesh. This right here is a mesh. A mesh is a step-by-step guide with video overlaid on any website or product that you can use to make a customer feel like you're on a Zoom call guiding them when you're not actually there. And you can point to specific elements on a page. So here's where you sign up, and right here above it is our logo. And if you want to learn about specific use cases that Mesh has to offer your business, just click this next button. There are 3 main use cases for Mesh, starting with sales. With sales, a sales rep can overlay themselves on a PowerPoint, website, proposal, demo site, and reach out to cold prospects or to people they've already pitched in order to help convert those deals. You can also use Mesh for onboarding and success. You can use this instead of your traditional tooltips in order to push your users towards value and make them really understand your product. And lastly, you can use Mesh for internal training. Using our Chrome extension, you can overlay yourself on any product, whether that's Salesforce or your admin panel, and then send that to your team, and they can view this mesh right on top of the product that they're working with. So if you want to learn more, if you want to meet with me, just click that calendar above my head. You can book time right on my calendar. Thanks so much.
So that's a great way to, give some context in a more engaging way, rather than just sending someone to your website and then letting them figure it out on their own. And he also included his calendar in the last step, which is a great call to action to really sort of follow through with that lead. All right. So just to close out here, some things that are coming soon: the Mesh guide automatically clicking and auto-navigating the user to make that process of following along much more smooth and seamless. Advanced rules to show meshes at the right time. So we saw a mesh pop up based on the user encountering a feature for the first time, but there's also a lot more advanced audience segmentation that can happen there. And then lastly, automatic tracking of user behavior around key conversion points. So that might be whether it's from a sales email converting to booking a time on the calendar, or it could be from an onboarding mesh converting to actually creating their first project. So we're targeting a $6.3 billion market in the US, mostly targeting the SaaS business that would encounter this problem the most saliently. So the global SaaS market is expected to grow 27.5% annually, and customer success is growing at 24% annually as well. And so our team built, scaled, and exited B2B SaaS business together, and we felt the pain of needing to constantly jump on one-to-one Zoom calls. We worked together for 6 years, and now we're back at it, and we are backed by Y Combinator as well as the CEO of MindBody. So thank you so much for listening. My name is Mike. Here's my email. If you have any questions at all, or if you're interested in joining our closed beta as a user, feel free to reach out. You can also book a time directly on our calendar with Ron here. And I can go ahead and share this Calendly link in the chat as well. And I'll be hanging out around in the tables afterwards. So if you have any questions for me, happy to chat as well. Thanks.
That was awesome. Thanks, Mike. Round of applause for Mike. So there we go. So everyone, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and as we're waiting for those, I've got a few here. Are there any? Is there any coding required to use Mesh?
So creating a mesh requires no coding or engineering whatsoever. You saw me create a mesh live just now, so that was a pretty simple one, but basically did it in a few minutes. If you do want to embed mesh on your website, for example, to show an onboarding mesh or to have a mesh pop up through a link, you would just need to add one line of code to your website, and then you can surface any mesh that you want for your users. Another way that you can actually view meshes is through the Chrome extension. So if you have the Chrome extension, you can view a mesh on any website, even if that website has not included the script on their page. But if you don't want to have your users download that, then just add that one line of code, and anybody can view a mesh on your website.
Nice, nice. And how is Mesh different from Loom?
Yeah, so Loom is basically a tool for you to screen record and then outputs a video file that you can share, as a file or through a link. The big difference with Mesh is that it's overlaid directly over the website or product. So the mesh will appear in context, so the user can actually, or the viewer can follow along, and they don't have to go back and forth between, viewing the mesh and actually taking those actions in the product. So they're much more likely to actually complete them and convert. So if you've ever, been sent a 10-minute video, that it's not always the most enticing thing to watch.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a question from Charles. Are you planning an open source variant of Mesh?
We don't have any plans for an open source version of Mesh, but that's certainly something that we could consider if there was if it made sense.
Got it. And we'll go with one more question here before closing out. What are the different ways someone can receive or open a mesh?
Yeah, so we saw in the demo a couple different ways. So the first would be just sharing a mesh via a link. So every mesh has its own permalink. You can send that via email. You could embed it as a hyperlink, however you like. Then when somebody clicks it, they would be brought to the web page, and the mesh overlaid on it would load and appear overlaid on it. The second way is if you have the SDK embedded on your web page, you can trigger meshes either by creating rules in the mesh platform. So you can say, I want a mesh to appear when a user lands on this page if they are an admin user for my product and they haven't used this feature before. Then that mesh could appear automatically for them. The third way is that you can actually send a mesh to someone from the dashboard, and they'll get an email saying, hey, you got sent a mesh. And then from that email, they could just open that mesh with the mesh overlaid.
Great, great. Hey, Mike, thanks so much again. Before we close out, is there an ask or an offer you have for everyone?
Yeah, so our one ask would be any introductions to potential customers who would be interested in using it with a web-based product, looking to increase conversion and retention, either in their sales outreach or in product.
Is there a specific kind of customer you're looking for?
Really, any business that has a web-based software product, that would be the one I would say sort of hard qualification. We're ideally targeting, I think the businesses that typically find the most value in what we have are businesses that are growing their customer base. But we also, so that would be sort of like Series A, B, and later stage companies. But that said, we also have a number of pilots running with earlier stage companies. Really any company that has a software web-based product that is looking to increase retention and conversion.
Nice. And earlier you were mentioning a link that you wanted to share. Is that something you wanted to do?
Let me grab that. So I can just post it in the chat here. So this is just a Calendly to book a meeting with Ron. So if you are interested in trying out Mesh in our beta, feel free to just book a time there, and we'd be more than happy to chat with you.
Nice. Hey, thanks again, Mike. Everyone, if you want to reconnect with Mike after the demos, we'll have networking again after Tree presents its demo, so you can connect with Mike there. Okay.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Okay. So next up is our team from Tree. Hey guys, there's Peter.
Hello.
And Brad and Dan. How you guys doing?
Great, thank you. So there are three of us. We're in our office, and when we stop, we'll go back to work. I'm Peter Thum, and I'm the CEO of Tree, and this is Dan Sutera. He's my co-founder and our chief product officer. And this is Brad Willard, and he is our chief technology officer.
Okay, I'll just share the screen.
Okay.
All right, did you guys see?
Is this visible to you?
I'm going to assume so. Oh, yeah, everyone says yep. Okay, go for it, Peter.
So today we're going to tell you a little bit about Tree. We're going to use some slides and talk you through what Tree is and how it works. I'm going to hand off to Dan to go a little bit further in depth into the product and use cases we're pursuing initially, and then we're going to do a demo for you. So this is a really simple introduction from a strategic perspective and what gives rise to Tree. So this little simple map is a map of creativity. And on the upper left-hand quadrant, you can see social media. And these are platforms that are really easy to use and are wide-reaching, but they keep you in a very small creative box. And on the lower right-hand quadrant are platforms that are extremely powerful, but also require a lot of experience to use, even the ones that are intended to make things easier for you, like Squarespace and Wix, which isn't shown here. It's very easy to get into trouble with those and end up spending more time and money than you ever intended. And so the idea for Tree was to take all of the good stuff from these two quadrants and leave all the bad stuff behind and combine it. So take the easy and wide-reaching nature of social and the powerful aspects of web builders, and then put them all into one thing, and that's Tree: easy, powerful, and social. And so what we're doing is we're building a platform that makes page building dead simple. And so we're creating a set of Lego-like components for everything that you like to use and already use on the internet, and then you can pull those things onto a masonry layout page and build whatever you want. And so this is simple things like components for composition, social media, and then over time, we'll build more and more components, many of them initially in-house, and then we'll expand and open it up to outside development. And the mission of Tree is to make everyone a creator. And so I'm going to let Dan take over and walk through exactly what that means and talk through a couple of our initial target use cases. These are 2 out of about 150 that we've identified. And obviously we have to go after a limited number in order to get going.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Peter. All right, so the first, we're actually going to market with 2 use cases. First one is link in bio. And so what differentiates Tree from all the other link in bios out there is essentially up here in this quadrant here, you can see the traditional link in bio, which is just a bunch of links. And usually you have to come here, then click on one of these things, go to Facebook, and then back and forth and back and forth. And the difference with Tree is that we have all of these kind of social components. So for instance, here you see a Instagram feed component. Here's a Twitter feed. You can imagine underneath there might be a TikTok feed or a Facebook feed, even monetization tools like a Shopify or a Patreon, et cetera. And so this actually serves as kind of a snapshot dashboard where you don't have to bounce back and forth. Everything kind of lives in one place. The second big feature that differentiates us is it's a website. So depending on the type you are, in this case, it's a Tim Ferriss example. So he has a podcast. And so he would have subpages for his podcasts, in this case, like a podcast notes for each episode. So over here, you'll see a podcast component. Here's a Twitter profile component where you would just grab, let's say, at Sebastian Junger, and it would automatically grab all this stuff from the Twitter API and make a beautiful little component. And then you have basic ones like text and quotes, and here you see a Substack as well. If it was a different kind of user, like let's say a travel influencer, you might have a subpage for each trip. Here's my trip to Paris and Bali, et cetera, et cetera. And on that page, you might see different components like a Yelp component for where you ate and a hotels.com component for where you stayed, et cetera. The third differentiator from other link in bios is that we're going to have paywalls. It's not live yet, but coming soon. And so unlike other platforms like YouTube, where you have to have millions of followers and in order to get 2 cents a click from all of them and make a decent living, if let's say you're that travel blogger, you might be able to just have a few itineraries for free, the rest of them behind a $10 paywall, and all you need is a few hundred followers and you're in business. The second go-to-market is groups. And there's really 2 kinds of groups. One is the public group use case, which is kind of, you can think of almost like a Facebook group. And then the other one is private, more for B2B or startups, almost like a Notion. So as far as public groups, we will have a lot of the same similar feature parity as a Facebook group, like a feed. But the thing that we have that differentiates Tree is that we will have essentially a wiki. And by lowering the bar of usability, we really think that we'll be able to fulfill the original dream of what a wiki is supposed to be, which is collaborative. Whereas right now, most of the wikis that I use are read only. Like I've never actually contributed to a wiki, but that's what they're intended for. The other use case is kind of this private use case, more like a Notion-y sort of use case. And so here you have a private group. So this is not a public page. This is only shared with a few people. And in this case, this is, let's say, an investment group of angel investors, and they're trying to decide who to invest in. So here's the pitch deck, and here's the YouTube pitch, and here's the founding team. And then we even have, and we'll show this live in a minute, Google Suite, Google Sheet component where you can actually say here, do you want to invest? Do you not want to invest? And you can edit this live. And so the reason why I say OS or operating system is that at a company, or whether you're a company or whether you're an investment group in this case, you kind of need an organizing principle because you have things that live in different places. You have things that live in Dropbox and Google Drive and Google Sheets and all these different places. And so what Tree allows you to do is kind of organize these things into a way that is essentially like a web-based operating system for whatever project you're doing or collaborating on. So throw it back to Peter for a sec.
All right, so the things that are coming, these already exist, but they're coming more intensively in the future are social and search. And so Tree is a social platform, and so people can follow you, and you can follow people, and you can learn things about those people depending upon what they're interested in. I think, in my view, what's even more interesting about Tree is that you can also follow topics. So you can drive what it is that you see on the basis of the topics that you follow. And that will allow you not only to discover new information about those topics, but also know new people and also new aspects of sides of people who you already know. You'll be able to see things that they're into that you also are into. We'll also have search on Tree. And we don't think of Tree search as being a replacement for Google or Twitter, but rather like another flavor of search. So let's say that you were searching for Bitcoin on Google. The first thing that will come up is probably the price of Bitcoin at that very moment. And if you search at the same time on Twitter, you'll see a bunch of results about people who are talking about Twitter who are really into crypto, people who are regular commentators on Twitter about what's happening with the blockchain. And then if you were to then search in Tree, you'll find an entirely different set of results that are structured in a different way and that are really following a different set of components or aspects of what Bitcoin is about. And so we expect that over time, as the population of Tree grows and the content of Tree grows, this will become a really important aspect of Tree. So now we're going to do a little demo for you guys.
Cool. So we have the beta live, and we'll get you guys in there right after this. So I created a Tree account for this tech meetup, and I'm logged in as Peter. Just to orient you here, at the top on the left, you have your tree or your pages. This is the feed that we were just looking at, where you can view other people's content. These are people who you follow and who follows you, and groups, which we'll show. In this nav area here, we have two sites right now. So we have a public site, and then we have a private site. First, we'll look at the public one. So I created this page of interesting other Tree pages. One of them is our careers page. And so here we have a couple of careers open. If anybody's a front-end engineer, contact us. So what I wanted to show here was, you might see this sometimes on Notion, where people publish careers pages as really a simple way to publish. And what we decided, it's kind of almost a secondary feature for Notion, but what we decided to do is kind of lean into that and make that experience of creating these simple pages really beautiful, really easy, and just more accessible to the everyman. And what we're working on next, I want to show you a different view of the same page, is kind of a more public view of this. So this is kind of the inside view with the nav and such. And we also have this kind of public view where we call it the white label view in a way, because it kind of cleans up the nav, cleans up the bars. And this is what you would see if you were going to publish this live. So you get this subdomain, careers.tree.io, more of a top nav sort of view. And then we also here, optionally, we remove those kind of borders. So it's just more cleaned up view. And then here we just have a little apply box. You can really put any component you want here or anywhere. So it's just kind of, this is on the roadmap about 2-3 weeks out. Let's see, the next thing that we wanted to show was, let me go back to my tree, my stuff. So Tree's also kind of a nice way to collect favorites. So I have a couple favorites here. So favorite social media accounts, favorite restaurants. Actually, let me show one other page before I jump into that. So here's just kind of like a guitar teacher using it as a website. Really easy to kind of like get this going, throw up a couple photos. And one interesting thing is that this guitar teacher is also using it with their students. So for each student, they each have a page that only that student has access to, so they can create these custom curriculums for each one of the students. Now going back to the favorites thing. So here's a list of some favorite restaurants, and then also a list of restaurants I want to try. Right now, these are link components, but we're also going to have Yelp components directly. And what's cool about it also is you can go to the feed, And in the feed, I'm following restaurants. So I'll click on restaurants. And here you'll see pages that are related to restaurants. So I can click on somebody else's restaurant list if they have a favorites list. And I can say, oh, this looks cool. Let me try this one. And I can kind of do this. It's almost like a Pinterest action, but I can say copy to my stuff, my favorites, my restaurants, boom. And then at the bottom of my thing, you'll see, oh, okay, now I have this restaurant. So it's kind of like a way to share either restaurants or movies or things you like to buy on Amazon or whatever. Here's another example, and we'll kind of demo the builder here. So here's a list of social media accounts that might be popular or interesting. And I have some Instagram favorites at the bottom. So we'll edit this page. And this should look sort of familiar or feel sort of familiar, but we have all the components are on the left here, and I'll kind of go through some of these. But at the top, we have kind of your standard text and link and images. Then in here, you start to get into the social stuff, so posts and tweets and timelines. Then you have your Google Suite. Then you have kind of Dropbox, Discord, things like that. So we'll show some of these on some of the other pages. But we're about a week away from launching a dozen more components. And then eventually, like Peter was saying, this will be a third-party app store. So anybody can kind of come in and publish their own component and make money off it that way. In any case, what we're going to do is just add a quick Instagram post over down here. And it'll ask for a link. So I have a Bill Burr post here. So we'll drop that in here. Boom, boom. Yeah, and again, you can drag this stuff around. You can do kind of whatever you want. But for now, we'll just say done editing. And now we got our Bill at the bottom. And the last thing I'll kind of show is the groups functionality. So here we have two groups. So this is the two cases we were talking before. One is the business case, but first we'll look at kind of the wiki case. So this is a NFT project / video game project. And what these guys are doing is kind of world building for a fantasy video game. And so this wiki is all about what are the things in that world? What are the plants, the animals, the history, etc. So what's interesting here is you can kind of go into the flora and fauna. We'll look at the animals. And one interesting component that you may have seen before is the Discord component. So a lot of groups have moved kind of away from Facebook towards Discord as a place to gather. And so what we've done is we try to play nice with as many of these other products as possible, one being Discord. And this is actually a live Discord component. So you can type in here, cool, and have a conversation. And then from there, you can actually have, if this is a conversation about what animals you want in the world, you can kind of make decision and then create subpages about whatever you want, flying llamas, let's say. And so you can have the flying llama page, etc. Now, a very different use case is the kind of B2B case, which is we have a sample company, sample workspace, sample pitch. And so here's the big pitch. And what you can see here is an example of an embedded Google Doc. So it plays nice with Google Docs. And you can add words here, add more words. And then below here, what you have an example here of is a Google Drive folder. So as much as you try to keep your Google Drive clean, once you get beyond, let's say 5 employees, people are just throwing stuff everywhere and it gets a little unwieldy. So what you can do is use Tree, again, as an operating system, sit over the top of Google Drive and say, oh, okay, here's the logos that we need for this presentation. And if you click on one of these, it'll just kind of like open up, something in Google Drive. So boom, boom, boom. And same thing for Dropbox. And then down here, we just have another example of just like a random Google Sheet that we've been using. So again, this acts as kind of a general operating system to keep your whole team on track and collaborating. And yes, there's some similarities here to other products on the market. The big differentiator is that, number one, it's super easy. And number two, we're going to have just a ton of apps that span the whole market of apps. All right, back to you, Peter. Q&A.
So we're ready to do Q&A with you all. And
Probably stop sharing.
I think we have to unshare.
Hey guys, that's I've seen this directly from you, Peter. It's awesome. It's impressive. There's so many ways to go with it, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is, what's the learning curve of this, and where do you get started, and are you going to have any kind of consultative services that are suggestive of how to build out a system or a tree?
So we are talking about that question right now, and initially we thought about basically tree is free, and we think it'll probably be free for a majority of the people who ever use it, and then there will be people who want advanced versions that come with more sophisticated sets of things that you can use, and more advanced tools. And so once we see what the appetite is for that, we may introduce different price levels that may also include support for people. Like right now, we're sort of doing the traditional thing of doing things that are not scalable and helping lots of people get on tree. And what you find is that there are people for whom, like Dan was saying earlier, there are people who it's really, really easy for, and they become some of the best page builders on tree immediately just because they're very facile. And for other people, it's hard, and they sort of need a little coaching only because it's new for them. And one of the things that we do expect is that with time, with anything, we'll be building tools that will make it much easier for people who are, maybe not as facile, who are not digital natives or who don't use the internet very often. There will be things like templates for them. There will be things that are supports for them. They'll make it quite easy for them. But my daughter, who's 9, has been using Tree now for a year, and she's as good at it as most people who use it who are in their 40s.
Uh-oh, is that the standard we have to live up to? We have a question around some features, including does it have live communication features? Does it have a place to comment? And does it have a like or react section directly from the product?
So those are multiple questions. Since Dan is our CPO and
it came from one person.
I'm gonna let Dan or Nina say what and when.
So one thing I forgot to mention is just like we have the Discord component for kind of the wiki case, we're also working on a Slack component for the kind of the business OS case. So what you can imagine is for that big pitch screen that we had, you have a big pitch channel that's pinned right above that for communication in the short run. In the medium term, kind of in the kind of Q1 of next year range, as Peter was talking about, that's kind of when we're going to be more focused on launching the social features. So more of the feed and the following. And as part of that, we're going to have not a like button, but reactions. So if you're familiar with either Discord or Slack reactions, where you have just a lot of reactions to choose from. So kind of that style on pages, on components. We'll also have a comments section that's optional. So as the kind of creator of the page, you can turn that on or off. So yeah, we're going to start adding some of that stuff, messaging also. So.
Got it. Okay. Good. There's a question about, do visitors go to tree.com or do they go to the name of my company.com?
So I guess it's just a domain question. So there's a few different levels of domain options that we're going to offer. The first one is it would be something like tree.io/your company name, right? And then for premium, one of the premium upgrades that we would offer, and premiums would be like $4 a month for individuals, $9 a month for companies. You'd get subdomains, so you'd be able to do mycompany.tree.io. And then in the future, we're going to offer more options where you could link to an existing domain that you own, or potentially even purchase one through Tree.
So that's where I was going next. Is Squarespace over time added the ability to buy domains directly through them? Is that where you're headed?
I think at some point, yes.
Or is it a secret?
Brad's intimately familiar with that question because he comes to it from Switch.
Yeah, I mean, I think, once we have our product really refined and people want it, like, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. And we've got one more question, and then we'll close it out. Does Tree offer? I'm sorry. Does Tree offer that would allow me to display a dashboard to a client? AI.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Does Tree offer
Go ahead. Can you ask the question one more time?
API? Sorry, it's trickling in. Does Tree offer an API that would allow me to display a dashboard to a client?
So I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but so one thing you would be able to do is you'd be able to create a page or a site that is only for the client. So it would be between you and the client. So yes, you can have a client area that's just specific to that client. You can put whatever elements you want on that page. Second question about the API, I do think that eventually we would support an API for Tree. I'm not sure how you would then use that to create a dashboard. We'd have to probably think about that long term.
That sounds like an engineering huddle question.
Yeah, it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, well, I also think it goes back to this a question that as we build out some of our components, I could imagine that a lot of the components that we add in the future could be related to specific dashboarding tools, and especially once we have this app store of different rich components. There's a world where different dashboarding vendors might I could imagine a mixed panel component on Tree, for example, and then you could filter it to a specific vendor if you wanted to share that as a dashboard. And then we would provide all of this collaboration and permissioning functionality on top of the dashboard.
Got it. Okay. All right, guys. Fantastic. Thank you. Do you have an ask offer for everyone?
Yeah, we have a link.
We're going to show you our
Here.
offer in a minute. We have many asks. But the one, we're building a team. So if you're a genius who wants to come and have fun building an amazing company, reach out to us. I'm going to say it right now. My email is peter@tree.io. And I'd love to hear from anyone who's on this webcast. And then we will I'll directly deal, whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to chat about, or I can connect you with the right guy on our team. And we would love you guys to jump on Tree and start using it. And so we've set up a link that is in the chat right now. And so you can grab it. It's tree.io signup/NYTM.
Good deal. Anything else, Peter?
Not from me. Let me see. I think Dan, is going to show you a page, but
No, we're good.
that's all right.
That's it for us.
I think we're done.
You're done.
We've
Okay.
had enough handoffs for one presentation.
All right. Well, that wraps things up for tonight. Thanks to both everyone at Tree and Mesh. We look forward to seeing you guys scale up and succeed like crazy. So wishing you all the best in that. Everyone, you can continue networking. We'll close out the event, and you can continue networking at the tables. Meet Peter, Dan, and Brad, and Mike, and continue to ask questions, and including pricing. There was a pricing question here. So
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in September, hopefully, when we meet up in person. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Everybody.